along with this, and I've divided it in half. Those of you who don't really like to use guidelines, you can just sort of skip that part if you want to. But I'm going to begin drawing the two figures that are going to be in this particular pose. It's a little bit tricky to draw, and that's why I thought if I put this square here, we will all be starting in the same location in a way, and it'll kind of help you to see the proportions and so forth. So I'm drawing one of the two heads here. This is going to be this female character who's sort of leaning forward to give a kiss. And then over here, I'm drawing the male character's head. And so, you could reverse this. I don't mean for everyone to follow. It doesn't necessarily have to be the girl kissing the boy on the cheek, right? It could be the dude kissing the girl on the cheek. You guys can replace this with your own characters, hopefully. Do your own thing with it. But for my purposes, I'm beginning by drawing these two heads. This one facing more straight toward us. This one is going to be more in profile. Let's go ahead and draw the actual pose of this girl leaning over to give the boy a kiss. And this is her back. And the arm is going to go kind of right across the lower part of his cheek there, so that it obscures a little bit of it. And then just go ahead and finish up that arm here, going across. And her hand is going to be a little bit obscured from view. If you want to, you can go ahead and dash that in there. Let's go ahead and using the bottom of her head, where this line meets here is a sort of a guideline. You can sort of come down here and draw the rest of her body. Again, all in profile. She's leaning over, and he's going to be sort of leaning straight, or not leaning, but facing straight toward us in a somewhat comical fashion. Let me go ahead and start to indicate her hair. And notice, as I often do with these manga drawings, I will have the hair kind of float a little bit above the rest of the head. That's because in manga characters, generally the hair is very full-bodied, and so you end up with that line not following so neatly across your initial line of the head. I'm going to do just sort of real rough guidelines here that give me a sense of where the hair is going to fall. And maybe it's time for me to show you a little more of her face so that you can begin to really see what it is I'm drawing here. I'm going to go ahead and let's start up here and come down, and coming across like so, we are creating the profile of her nose. I wonder if I should, let me zoom in. Hang on, I'm going to zoom in so you can see this in greater detail. Okay, so we've zoomed in here, and I'm starting to draw her profile. Like I said, we got the nose coming out here, and a sort of an interesting thing is going to happen. And if you followed with my square guideline, her kiss, her lips will actually almost come right at that midway point, sort of a helpful guideline. And I'm sort of readjusting this chin, the line at the bottom of her chin. And what's going to happen as I erase here, instead of actually drawing her lips in a very fully defined way, I'm just going to allow the line to break a little bit right there, right where her lips meet his cheek, and it's a sort of cute cartoony way of indicating the kiss without actually drawing the lips. You are welcome, of course, to draw the lips, but I sort of like, and this is sort of based on what I see in a lot of manga illustrations, I sort of like when it's left to your imagination a little. It somehow looks cuter to me. Well, I'm drawing her eye here, and her eyes are closed, and so we're sort of seeing this in profile. And just above, I'm giving her a little extra eyelash here. Just above the eye, I'm going to put the eyebrow sort of slanted up at a slight angle. I often see this in kissing poses. There's something sort of tender and, I don't know, fragile, I guess, about that. I don't know, I'm having trouble getting the bottom of this head right. Doing a lot of erasing here today. and adjusting that just a little further, you can kind of get a sense of that profile I was talking about. Now I'm going to move right along then and draw the eyes of this boy character, and sort of the classic manga kiss on the cheek scene that I think of always is the one where he is surprised, like he didn't see this coming. Oh my goodness, she's kissing me on the cheek. And there's something sort of innocent and cute about that. So I'm going to give him these wide open eyes, kind of oval-shaped irises, and I'll go ahead and just put in the upper eyelash line and try to give him a very surprised look. So measuring some space across there, you could get at least 1.5, I'd say, of those irises before you draw this other iris over here, because he's sort of looking straight at us and is not, turning his head very much. You can use that horizontal line there as a guideline to make sure that these eyes are pretty evenly placed, the distance there. And then the challenge, of course, is to reproduce that eyelash line in such a way that it mirrors the other one. And I'm going to make his eyebrows go way up high on his head to show just how surprised, pleasantly surprised, right? Come on. He's loving it. Let's not kid ourselves. And then, a lot of times, and this is kind of unusual, a lot of times a Chibi character has no nose at all. And you could, of course, do that as well with this character, but I've decided to add this, just a little hint of a nose here, so as to differentiate between the nose and this sort of open mouth that has this, oh my goodness, she's kissing me on the cheek kind of a look. And I'm even going to add just a couple of lines there, the folds of the eyelid. And that kind of gives us the basics of this character's head, her head in profile, his head facing straight toward us. I'm going to go ahead and drop in his ear. And let's go ahead and do her ear over here. Now, these are sort of the main characteristics that I want to focus on. And the rest of it is maybe not so important, in my view, to follow along in a line-by-line way. But if you want to, feel free to follow along. With each and every line that I draw, I'm back to doing the Brooklyn accent. Actually, the last couple of videos that I've done, I have not done so much talking, right? They've been sort of shorter videos. In fact, I saw someone left a comment on one of my latest videos, and it's like, Mark, all your videos are short now. You never talk anymore. It's just like that Gautier song. You're someone that I used to know, man. I want to reassure you, I haven't changed. I'm still the Mark that you used to know. But I did actually, I'll admit that when my playing card video went a little viral, I was a little nervous about going right back to a 18-minute video of me gabbing the whole time. I thought it might be a shock to the system for some of those new viewers, like, oh man, boy, this guy sure loves to talk. So I thought I would sort of ease them into it, and this is probably going to be the first of the longer form videos that I've done since that big playing card video. For those of you who don't know, that one really became my first viral video. 4 million views in quite a short period of time. Anyway, I'm drawing this guy's hair in, as I often say, but I have to say it again, I'm not telling you line by line how to draw this particular hairstyle. I sort of like the idea of people taking these poses and changing them around and introducing their own characters rather than drawing, every single line that I do and ending up with a whole bunch of drawings out there that look exactly like mine. I know that I'm coming up against the top of the video frame there, so I'm going to probably have to pull back to give you a wider view of that. But while we're in here, why don't I at least show you how you could indicate some wrinkles on her coat here as she reaches across to give him that little smooch on the side of the cheek. I don't even know what this accent is supposed to sound like. It's a terrible accent. That's what it sounds like, Mark. Stop doing it. Just stop. I'll put in a few strands of his hair back here. And maybe a couple of wrinkles. Oh, you can't even see. I'm going to have to pull back. Let's pull back, and then we'll carry on with drawing his pose and more wrinkles on the clothes and so forth. So, time to refocus. All right, so we've got her pose pretty much in place, but we've got very little of his pose. So it's time to get that done, and I'm going to begin by drawing one arm, his arm kind of coming across like so. The elbow area is going to reach right around where the bottom line of that square is, if you want to use that as a guideline. And I'm actually going to have his arms kind of crossing in front of each other to give this, sort of add to this feeling of insecurity and surprise and so forth that he's got going on there. And I thought, what if he's wearing one of these sort of high school uniforms that has, it looks like a suit coat kind of a deal. So I'm putting the lapel in like so. But like I said, the elbows, we always get wrinkles around the elbows. Very often that's where the wrinkles form. So I'm going to draw several lines in here for indicating those wrinkles. She also is going to get some more wrinkles down here and some right around the waist. So these are sort of like the key places where the wrinkles form, even in a chibi drawing where you're sort of simplifying things a lot. And maybe I get down here to the bottom of her coat, and that'll be where I sort of end the drawing because we are reaching the end of the video frame there. So I think what I'll do right now... Oh, I got to finish off his coat. Sorry. I think what I'll do right now is do some final line work with my trusty black Prismacolor, but then try my best to squeeze in a little bit of real-time shading at the end. You guys who've watched me a while is like, you always time-lapse through the shading, man. How can we learn how to shade a drawing if you always time-lapse it? Actually, my readers or my viewers are not that angry with me. I certainly hope they're not. But I like to portray them as this angry mob with torches and pitchforks. In any case, I'm going to go ahead and finish off the line work with my trusty black Prismacolor, and then we will be back to do some shading, hopefully a little bit of it in real time. All right, so we've got the final line work done. Let's see if we can squeeze in a little bit of real-time shading here. I'm holding my pencil pretty low to the paper at a very low angle so as to, instead of getting sharp lines, sort of deliberately trying to get this, very wide tone forming by way of just the repetitive strokes of the pencil against the page. This is just, one of my techniques that I always switch this way. And then when I'm trying to do detail, I come at a much sharper angle. So I find that the way you hold the pencil, the angle that the lead of the pencil is hitting the page, is pretty important in terms of what kind of line you're going to get. And sometimes like when you're shading like this, you definitely want not a precision, not a very sharp, precise line, but this very kind of foggy, imprecise line that creates a very nice even tone. And what I want to do here is take just one section that will be where I imagine the highlight being. I'm using my eraser to sort of erase back in here. Very often, especially with these chibi cartoon characters, you'll see a very simple line like that going right across for indicating some sort of a highlight, like shimmer, makes the hair look shiny. And even with more realistic looking drawings, you'll very often see just a simple kind of minimalist line like that. Now, I'm going to be working into this hair a lot more later on probably as I finish up the drawing. But you've kind of got the basics of it. You can see that I first put down, my best attempt at an even tone. And then from there I erased away the highlight. And then what I do is sort of darken up the lower part of it. And then sometimes I will also darken up the upper edge just a touch. And that, I find, adds to the feeling of three-dimensionality. I'll be doing pretty much the same thing with his hair, so I don't think it's necessary for me to do that part of it in real time. But how about if I switch over here? This is a little unorthodox, but I want you to get the idea of how shading in his clothing can be something that I do in response to the fact that her arm is leaning over in front of him, right across to plant that little smooch on his cheek. Am I doing like a southern accent? Because that's probably really offensive to my southern viewers. I mean, isn't it enough that I've offended the people of Brooklyn with this terrible Brooklyn accent? What? I'm going to alienate the South now? But what I'm doing here, apart from my ridiculous accents, is adding more and more darkness right here in this upper area, and this creates the feeling of a shadow that is created by her arm. And you will see, again, I think I'm going to have to, kick it into time-lapse to keep this video at a reasonable length. But this at least gives you one little technique here of using shading underneath an arm or whatever object it is to help it pop, make it look more three-dimensional. So let's go ahead then and kick it into time-lapse to finish off the shading, and I'll be back with one or two final touches that will finish off this drawing. Alright, well, I finished up the shading there. Like I said, there's a few more things I want to add here to finish off the drawing. One of them is I just like to add a few lines like this that accentuate the feeling of surprise on his part, and so you can sort of darken those in a little if you like. And then the last thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to have to do this in time-lapse, is a katakana sound effect here in Japanese, the sound effect for the kiss itself. It has its own sound effect, and the sound effect is chu. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that in Japanese, or, in the katakana. And I do mean draw. I'm not actually writing these katakana properly. I'm kind of drawing them almost like a picture of some kind. But I'll do that in time-lapse and be right back. All right, well, I've done the drawing. I've done the sound effect, so I'm finished. I'm just kidding. I'm not really finished. I couldn't be finished if I haven't drawn the blushies. Gotta have blushies. I don't know if she's all that shy, but certainly she's feeling some intense emotion, but not as intense as this guy. Oh, yeah. He's going red in the face, out of shock, embarrassment, and a certain degree of great pleasure. But that kind of ends this drawing. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. But I do want to sort of follow up on what I said at the beginning of the video. The woman who got in touch with me, her name is Elizabeth Struck, and these are her words that she wrote to me in her email. She said, "Our goal is to make the gold cancer ribbon as popular as pink has become for breast cancer. We hope as it becomes more popular, this area will get more funding. More funding means more research and a possible cure." So please remember, September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and I hope you will click on those links. Check out the YouTube video channel that Elizabeth has created there for the Goin' Gold campaign. Also, please go over to her Facebook page and click like. That is something that you can do that, believe it or not, really does help. I think the more likes that someone gets on Facebook, the more support they can get, the more media attention they can get over time and different things like that. So let's go ahead, though, and lay down this pencil. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed making it for you, and I'll be back with another one real soon.